And stop. Hey, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome back to another episode of Meet the Team, where, of course, we go behind the scenes with people shaping Oasis. And today I have a very special guest with me, someone who has been really instrumental in expanding our BD efforts, pushing technical boundaries. We're diving into his journey today, his insights into Web3, and what's next for Oasis. So I would say buckle up, grab your favorite beverage, and we should get started. And as always, feel free to ask questions in the chat. We'll make sure to answer them at the end. So, as I said, today I have a very special guest, Robert Brianza, as I like to pronounce his last name. Um, Robert, welcome. Say hi to the community, maybe do a little bit of an intro for yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Minia, for introducing me. So I am Robert Brienza. I am one of the two BD specialists at Oasis, and yeah, I started about a year ago. It's been a really fun journey. Basically, BD work, biz dev involves, getting projects together and helping build an ecosystem. So that's really been something I've been focused on, but also interested in for like quite a long time. We'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, I'm really happy to be doing this and kind of finally showing my face to the community.
And we're happy to have you, Robert. And I'm sure the community already knows you because you've been quite active at conferences, doing talks, hosting workshops. So I'm sure most of our community is already familiar with you, but I'm super happy to have you here with me today. Yeah, I think we should start with your role at Oasis. And if you had to explain what you do, and not in a formal way, but as if you were describing it to a friend over coffee, how would you put it? What's a day in your work life, and what excites you most about it?
Yeah, so I think the best way to describe it is you are trying to market something that someone's already built, but it's not marketing, right? So it's almost easier to describe what it isn't. So it's not, it's not engineering, it's not development, it's not necessarily doing things on community and socials, right? So it's just kind of this middle ground where you're connecting all of those dots together. So you are interacting with the community a bit. You are going to conferences. You are talking with developers and engineers, and you're trying to put all this together to focus on building an ecosystem. And in our case, it's our blockchain. And so yeah, the goal is for us is to get more developers building, get more interesting use cases, even more research potentially, and yeah, like the ultimate goal is just to get more usage of the blockchains. And so, what we care about is privacy. And so for me, it makes it a very easy job to tell people, hey, like you should care about privacy, right? That's something I've always been interested in. And so it lends naturally kind of to what I do here at Oasis.
If you were to describe to, I don't know, get somebody interested in blockchain privacy, how would you do it?
Yeah, I
Like
would
a
just
like
say
a
like, you can use all your cloud services and whatnot, and that'll probably work for a lot of things. But try using, well, I won't name any names, but try using certain centralized crypto services for sure. You'll probably run into an issue at some point and be you're pretty unhappy about the service that you're getting. So I think the decentralization aspect is pretty obvious to anyone who's been in the space long enough. And then the privacy aspect, a lot of people, it doesn't ever really affect them directly, where it's not like you're getting attacked necessarily for having some sort of transparent wallet movement or whatever. But we do see this happens in the news, right? We saw the higher level employees at Ledger got kidnapped recently. These things do happen pretty often. So not that you can prevent 100% of these things, but I think it does show the need for some level of privacy in your own life, right? What information you put out there, whether that's your blockchain movements, your social media, or anything else. I think people really underestimate the need for privacy. So yeah, that's my pitch.
I totally agree, and unfortunately, it's a sad world we live in, and these things happen all the time. I think we had a case in Bangkok as well where somebody was, I don't know, I haven't fact checked this, but I remember there was a case in Phuket where somebody was kidnapped and they extorted him of. a hefty sum.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need privacy in your life, even though decentralization is very beneficial, but you need some kind of level of privacy when it comes to exploring Web3. Um, and this kind of leads to my next question because honestly, everybody's path to Web3 is unique. For some, it's this deep fascination with decentralization. For others, it's about solving real world problems. What were you doing before joining Oasis? What was that aha moment where that pulled you into this space?
Yeah.
There like a particular project idea or challenge that made you think, yeah, this is where I need to be from now on?
Yeah, so first heard about Bitcoin at the start, but I didn't really understand it. I was still a teenager, and you know, people were talking about this peer-to-peer electronic money, and I was like, okay, but like, you know, what's this all about? So then years later, you know, the bull market of 2017 started kicking off, and people started talking about Ethereum, and I I still didn't understand it, but at least I started to get more interested, and so I started to do my own research. You know, I just looked things up online, and I really started to see this need for, like, you know, the decentralization part. But naturally, my own inclination was, this needs to be private, right? I quickly understood Bitcoin, Ethereum, these are not private, you know, assets, private blockchains, and that should be like priority number one. Like, we need to focus on this immediately. So I actually, the first crypto I ever really got passionate about was Monero, like I said, 2017. And then from there, that was basically my main focus was, you know, what other ways can we implement privacy with this cool new technology? And so at the time I was in graduate school, and, you know, alongside doing my degree in physics, I was just researching blockchain, crypto, you know, private, you know, anything I could get my hands on. Um, and yeah, that's where I stumbled upon Oasis in 2021, and then, you know, the rest is another story. But that was how I got started.
I joined Oasis in 2021, so from the you joined from the ambassador program as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I did join Ambassador.
Okay, yeah. See, we Jesus, we have a lot of team members from the ambassador
Yeah,
program.
no, it's a great way to, like, kind of get your
Yeah,
way into the, you know, the greater ecosystem. I would say it makes a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah. I have a lot of friends who ask me like, how do I get a job in Web3? Like, there's no magic formula.
Yeah,
I would think. Granted, you have, I don't know, bigger projects who may be looking for Web2 experience, like traditional Web2 experience, but maybe in the marketing departments or something like that. But usually you have to get deep within a project, be part of their community, understand what their goal is, what they're trying to achieve, help out, and eventually you will get noticed and somebody will will say hi to you, and from there your journey starts. But
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. I would say just
the
put yourself out there. Like, just, you know, whatever skills you have, make it noticed. You know, make it
exactly,
visible.
exactly. Um, so you had basically a whole world of Web3 projects to choose from. Um, what made the Oasis stand out for you? Because there are other privacy-focused blockchains out there. Was there like a particular value, technology, or vision that made you think this is where I want to contribute?
Yeah. So initially, yeah, of course, there were at the time, and still are, you know, several privacy focused blockchains for like smart contracts, right? I mean, we could distinguish the two, where we have, like I said, Monero was my first interest, but I understood quickly, like, this is only going to be for transferring tokens back and forth, essentially. This is just for payments, which is fine. But I was also very passionate about Ethereum and what it could do and how it could change the world and all these big ideas. So I quickly looked into, okay, what private blockchains are there, and Oasis stuck out to me. It seemed like it had a very strong academic background, which, you know, that impressed me, and it just seemed like, in terms of like the architecture and the roadmap, that seemed like the best way forward. And I'm very happy with, you know, that judgment that I made at the time. So, you know, of course, now we have, or I guess, you know, a couple of years ago, Sapphire was conceived, and that was like the next milestone where I was like, okay, this is definitely the way to go. Like having a confidential blockchain is one thing, but having it be a confidential EVM that's, as easy to use as possible, given the constraints of how trusted execution environments work and these sort of things, that told me like, okay, yeah, this Oasis is the way to go. Like we need this confidential EVM in some way, shape, or form, and it needs to be here sooner rather than later. Like I'm not waiting. I don't want to wait like 5 years for this and some other technology to do it. Like it needs to be done now. This is, like I said, with Monero, like that. This should be the priority number one. Privacy is so important. Like, what are we doing here, guys? So that's how I got started.
That's how you preach it, Robert. And I know you're. This is why we have a great team, because we have people that are actually passionate about what they're doing, and I think that this is what makes a difference. It's not just a job; it's something you really believe in, and of course, it's easier for you to go out there and preach the technology and explain to people why this is important and what we can offer as a project.
Exactly.
But yeah, I want to get into a bit of a, I don't know, personal question, because we all have that one thing that, whether it's an unusual hobby or an unexpected skill or hidden talent, that people never guess about us. If you had to reveal one fun or surprising fact about yourself, what would it be? What would it be? And yeah, your PhD could be a great answer, but
Yeah, that's
if
sort of
there's
the point.
something even more unexpected, I'd
So
love to hear it.
yeah, so I alluded to being in grad school when I first got into crypto, and so I had stuck with both for the subsequent years since 2017, right? So I got my PhD in physics. That's what I had been working in, experimental research. And yeah, so I was working in like a atomic physics lab, tinkering with lasers and vacuum systems and that sort of thing. And so that was very rewarding, also very challenging. But I got through it. I survived. So if you look at my Twitter bio, I think it says something like recovering from a PhD in laser wrangling. Or it's kind of how I view it. Like it was a long process, but yeah. So I graduated, and then around the time I graduated was basically when I started working at Oasis. So because those were always my two biggest passions, physics and science in general. But I guess blockchain, in a sense, is a science, and so it was those two. And I had to pick at that point, and I went with blockchain. And so but yeah, this is the blockchain is what you could see at face value, but yeah, physics is definitely something I'll always have a passion for, always be doing something with, hopefully. So I'm always finding ways to kind of use those skills and learn more and that sort of thing.
So, where do you see yourself in the future? Would you um, go keep this path, the blockchain path, or go the science route?
I mean, hopefully in some way both. Right now DeSci is not. It's maybe a bit of a narrative, but I don't think there's much to it at the moment. But that could change, and I think there's also ways that my specialty. So I focused, like I said, atomic physics, which does use a lot of like quantum mechanics, and there are ways that you can actually use quantum mechanics in computing, like obviously quantum computing. This is a topic that my degree kind of naturally lends itself towards, and this kind of can tie into blockchain. I actually saw there was a workshop recently, like 3 weeks ago, I want to say, and the paper is online, but I forget the exact name. But it basically involved using the quantum nature of lasers to generate one-time memory that you could use like with TEEs and this sort of technology. So it was like the perfect balance of both of these things. I was very fascinated by it. So yeah, if down the lines, I could do something like that, that would be perfect for me. I think that would be, that would be ideal. But for now, we're just sticking with, blockchains, not using my physics skills directly.
How does that work?
So the physics of generating
Yeah,
the one-time memory. So basically, I'll be very brief. I'm not going to
yeah.
go crazy, but so there's basically this property of in quantum mechanics where you have entanglement of pairs of particles, for example, and there's something called a no cloning theorem where you can't actually copy a piece of data due to the way observation of states works. So you basically can only transfer information, and so it gets this really weird property. But that's kind of the foundation behind how you can do this one-time memory. I'm not an expert in that paper itself, of course. I read it one time briefly, but yeah,
Okay.
that's my understanding of how it works.
Okay. This sounds very interesting. I'll pick your brain after the call.
Sure.
Okay, so Rob, you've been to a lot of conferences last year, and I'm sure each one had its own standout moments. But if you had to pick one or two unforgettable experiences, whether a nice panel or a moment that made you think differently about Web3, what would they be?
Yeah, I would say overall, my favorite was probably ETH Denver last year. It was my first crypto conference ever. I just started at Oasis like 2 weeks prior, so we're coming up on a year basically. ETH Denver is coming, of course, at the end of February, and so I basically started at Oasis, and my first duty was go to ETH Denver, right? And I had not had any like training, I guess, but I'd been in the community for like 3 years, so I had that passion, and so I hit the ground running, and it was just go go go, and so that was a really energizing experience for me. And pretty much every conference since has been in the similar type of style, right? You have either a booth or you're going around to different booths of other projects, or attending talks, that sort of thing. But yeah, I'll never forget that. That was I don't know. That was just such a highlight for me. ETH Dam was also really cool though, because it was just the total opposite. You have Denver, which is just massive crowds of people. ETH Dam was our own kind of little conference, very hacker focused though. Everyone was just coming up with all these great questions. A lot of them I was struggling to answer, and it really made me think a lot. And seeing all the projects building, with privacy in general, but also on Oasis, that was really cool as well. So I would say those two were probably the highlight for me.
I'm super sad that I can't come to Denver this year, but maybe next year. I
Yeah, that'd
I'm,
be nice.
I want to visit the United States. So
Yeah, Denver's a beautiful city. It's I'm not a city person, but it was very nice. It impressed me.
okay, I heard great things about Denver, so I'm sure you guys will have a lot of fun and meet a lot of cool people there. Uh, and regarding meeting cool people, I would say that business development in Web3 is a completely different beast compared to traditional industries. What are some of the biggest challenges that make BD in Web3 unique? Are there any, I don't know, hurdles that you've had to overcome that really illustrate the complexity of building partnerships in this space?
Yeah, I would say the space is just so fast moving, right? So what that means in practice is you're going to sometimes be trying to develop business relationships for products that are not fully built yet. We're seeing with Raffle, which is coming out very quickly and it's making a lot of progress, but it's not 100% there yet, right? We don't have GPU support, for example. So sometimes it's hard to just be like trying to communicate to people like, this is what you can do, but just wait a little bit longer. And everyone's moving fast, right? It's not just us, it's the whole space. But so that is a challenge in a sense, but also it's kind of why I like the space in the first place. I like how fast moving it is. There's constant need for innovation and progress. So yes, I would consider it a challenge, but also a selling point of doing business development in Web3. If I was some paper salesman in Scranton, Pennsylvania, there's not a lot of innovation going on there, right? It would not be very interesting to me.
Okay, nice office pun. I'll give you that. um, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I love. So I'm a community person, but when I'm at conferences, I always try to do a bit of BD work as well. I'm not as good as you guys are because I'm not that technical. So I'm always amazed of how technical you all have become in the BD team. But I do like trying to open people's minds and giving them the Eureka moment when it comes to privacy. So yeah, I understand that it's it's amazing. It's a very cool job. Um, okay. My next question would be, I think the whole space is evolving at lightning speed. No pun intended, regarding the Lightning Network. But I think every day brings new lessons. And looking back on your journey, what would you say has been the most valuable learning experience? One of those moments that you'll never forget that really shaped the way you approach this space.
That's a good question. I would say probably before I even started. There was a period of time where I actually had kind of checked out of crypto for a bit. It was during the bear market in like 2018, 2019. And so, there was a lot of excitement at first. I was doing a lot of research, and then I kind of fell out of it. And I always think about that, and I kind of regret it, not from like a financial standpoint, but just the fact that like, I got interested in something because of the technology, and the technology didn't suddenly stop existing. So yeah, I always think about the fact that like there could have been a lot of cool things being built during that time, and there were, and I was not, I was not following my passion, I guess, at that time. So that was kind of a learning experience for me where, it taught me like, you have to stick through during the hard times as well, right? I had my one passion of physics, which I stuck through, but crypto at one point I was just kind of like out of it and not really following things. And it was kind of the dark ages of my education in the Web3 space. So who knows where I would be now if that had been handled in a different way. So yeah, I guess that was a learning moment for me. I don't know if that was exactly what you were asking for, but
Yeah, that is exactly what I was looking for. That is exactly the type of answer I was trying to pry away from you. Very nice. So let's go a bit into your maybe your personal life, your hobbies, because outside of work we all have things that keep us inspired, motivated, creative, right? If we were to talk about something you love doing in your free time, um, something that not only brings you joy but fuels your work, what would that be?
yeah, I mean, I have few different hobbies. Recently, I've been trying to get back into playing the trumpet. In high school and college as well, I was in the marching band, so I was the band geek. I never got bullied. Don't worry about that. But I know we were talking about that before the call. But yeah, so I've been playing trumpet for the last month or so in my church's kind of choir band sort of thing. And yeah, that's very rewarding because it's just a totally different part of my brain. I could sit at a computer all day and read about crypto or science or zero knowledge proofs or whatever, and it at a certain point you have to just switch gears. And so it's just a way to, instead of having input, you have output. You're putting something out into the world. You're generating creativity. You're moving your hands a little bit, using your face muscles. So that's definitely something I need. And even if it's only 20-30 minutes a day, just it's a very, I would recommend to people, like, try picking up an instrument. It's like nothing else. Like, not that it's better than everything else, but there's no other way to describe it really. Like, you need it. I feel like it's a part of human nature to musically express itself, even if you have no talent for it whatsoever. People sing in the shower and they're not very good, but they still do it. And I think that's because everyone has that urge.
I agree. I agree with you. And yeah, we were talking before the call. I've been trying to learn guitar for some time, and I think I'll get back to it because I really love guitar as an instrument. I do have a couple of guitars laying around, which I don't use. They're just gathering dust. So I think I'll try to get back on the horse. And outside of these passions, what's a book you would recommend?
Book. So my
Book.
favorite book is Ender's Game. I think I've read it like 2 or 3 times now. I've read a couple more in the Ender's Game series, Speak for the Dead, for example. But yeah, so I would say I would recommend that. Like, it's science fiction. It's really cool. Haven't really been reading. I think if I have one regret about extracurriculars, that might be it. As I've not been reading a lot of non-technical sort of writings. Like, everything I read is probably a blog post or some Twitter thread or some white paper, right? I haven't been reading a lot of fiction lately. So, but yeah, Ender's Game, I would say.
You should do that because we do need to have a life work balance, and I think it's important to go outside of this bubble we're in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everything we do is crypto, and at one point it's not healthy. I mean, I know we love it, but we need to do other things as well. And tell me a movie as well that you would recommend. One
Yeah,
movie that you
I mean,
like.
I saw Dune 2. I thought it was pretty good. Have not been watching a ton of movies though lately. Like I can't really get into them. So I know maybe that's a bit of a disappointing answer, but yeah, just movies
No,
just haven't been doing it for me. Like I just want to be doing other stuff all the time. Like I don't know. I guess because now my work is so heavily computer focused, it's like I don't want to sit in front of the screen anymore. Like
yeah,
it's just out of my
granted,
mind.
better. So nature with a nice book. I think
Yeah,
that's a
exactly. Yeah,
perfect
walking
solution.
while reading, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm one of those people that didn't really enjoy the Dune movies. It's just Villeneuve style. I find it very boring and watching the grass grow. Even though I love science fiction, but I don't know. Villeneuve doesn't do it for me. I only like Blade Runner
Yeah,
from
no,
his
I
work.
really
So
enjoyed both of those movies. Like, I don't dislike movies. It's just haven't. It's not really a passion for me. I don't think it ever was.
okay, I'm a movie buff, so
We'll have to disagree there.
yeah. Okay, let's move towards the end of our call. Of course, I have a flash round prepared with a couple of questions, but let's look towards the future. And I know, I mean, we know that the Oasis community is always excited to hear about what's coming next. So, without giving away too many secrets, what can the community expect in the upcoming months? Any major milestones or surprises we should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah. So of course, Raffle is still being built and incremented and iterated on, and so definitely look forward to that. But I don't have a lot of control over that. So in terms of things I do maybe have more of a hand in, I would look up uh, if you haven't already the liquefaction paper that was published by the Cornell Tech Research Group. That will be I can't say too much, but that will be definitely in the pipeline pretty shortly in some way, shape, or form. And I think it's really cool though. Like the amount of use cases that you can get out of TEs, specifically with Oasis, like not just general, like the Oasis Sapphire blockchain specifically. It's not just private swaps. It's not just private DAOs. This is all cool stuff. It's needed, but like you could do so much more that people aren't even really thinking about. Like I saw a Twitter post, I think yesterday, and it was someone who had their Coinbase account was getting dusted with token, like it was like 0.00001 ETH, it's from some random address, and that flagged it. And now they had to provide all this information of source of funds and things like that. And one of the interesting use cases of liquefaction is you can actually prove that you do not own funds that were sent to your account. Like you can set it up in a way that you have to basically approve that anything that you want to transfer into your wallet, and you can kind of attest to this. So yeah, so like dusting attacks for it's essentially a compliance attack. Like if you want to be regulatory compliant, and now we saw this a couple of years ago. I think someone sent like BlackRock had started some sort of fund on Ethereum, and then someone sent funds from Tornado Cash directly to that wallet, and I don't know if it caused problems for them. Like they didn't publicize that if it did, but I can imagine that would be a headache, right? And so this sort of thing can actually be prevented using Oasis Sapphire. It needs to be fully fleshed out, of course, but all this to say, there's a lot of really cool use cases, and I think some of them will be coming up pretty soon. So look forward to that.
And I don't want to give away any spoilers, but um, the next episode of my podcast might or might not have something to do with liquefaction. You'll just have to wait to see. Yeah, brilliant minds behind that project. So, okay, thank you, Robert. I think these are great news, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of developments in this upcoming year. But let's move to the flash round because I have prepared a couple of questions for you. And I don't know, should we set a timer?
Uh,
I didn't jot down Bernard's time
yeah, we'll do it
from the
live. That's
last
all right.
call. We'll just do it, yeah. Okay, first question. What is your favorite atom and why?
Okay. Favorite probably is strontium. It's the one I worked with when I was doing my research in graduate school, and yeah, it's a pain to work with actually, but I've grown attached to it. So yeah, strontium is the one.
Okay. Less laser you used.
It would be like 3 or 4 different ones all in conjunction, but it's diode lasers made by Toptica, very robust, very reliable, stable. So highly recommend if you're in the atomic physics space, by Toptica. Don't go anyone else.
Okay. Thanks for the tip. All-time favorite song.
We Just Disagree by Dave Mason. I
I
don't
do
have a
not
good
know that
explanation for
song.
why. I just really like the song, how it sounds.
Okay. I'll have to listen to that. Favorite privacy tool.
Favorite privacy tools. I would say, in the crypto space, obviously, I talked your ear off about Monero. I think that's just kind of the simplest for a lot of people to integrate with. Um, you know, I personally, I think block vote's really cool. I really hope that sees some usage. Like I feel like private voting in real life, private voting in blockchain, that's a no-brainer to me. So, I haven't, personally used it a ton. Obviously, I don't own a DAO or anything like that. Those two, but outside of crypto, I I've always been a fan of like hard drive encryption. I just think it's really cool that you could just download a piece of software and create this container, type in a password, and it's like not even the world's supercomputer could crack it. Like encryption in general is so crazy to me. And so yeah, that's a really basic use case. But like, and I wouldn't recommend doing this, but there was a time where I stored private keys on Ethereum inside of a Veracrypt container. There's no more funds on that, so if you do hack my computer, you're not going to get anything. But that I did do that once.
I'm a big fan of encryption myself, so I always encrypt my drives, everything, just to make sure nobody gets.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, if you could have any superpower, what would it be, and why, of course?
Superpower, I would say teleportation. Maybe it's not like the most OP like cheat power ever, but to me, it's just really interesting. Like you just go wherever you want, whenever you want. There's no delay. Like think about how much time you spend traveling, right? Especially in this space with flying to conferences, the costs involved and everything. People spend so much of their lives commuting to work. We invented this whole thing called remote work because of how much time that wastes. So yeah, I think just teleportation is just such a quality of life superpower. So even if it's not the strongest, I think it's just so many ways you could use it.
I agree. I would love to be able to teleport myself, especially for conferences, especially for long flights.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, decentralization or scalability, if you had to pick one.
That's a tough one because like you could be virtue signal that decentralization, man, it's so much more important. But like if nobody could use the decentralized tool because it's not scalable, like that's you're losing either way, right? So I would say honestly, my honest answer is scalability. Like I would rather have a
Okay.
service that works smoothly and works flawlessly and is not decentralized than one that is just like kind of breaking and way too expensive because it's basically a liveness failure. We talk about this with like Ethereum sometimes. It's a liveness failure if users can't afford to use the service, right? But if it's centralized, you could at least use it even if there's some risks. So I would say scalability is probably biggest. But then my cheat answer is privacy comes after that, and then maybe decentralization.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. I'm a UX guy, so for me, experience is important and the
Yeah,
whole process. So, of course, what point is is decentralized, but you can't use it. So,
but why not both?
yeah, of course. Favorite outdoor thing to do?
Uh, Honestly, lately it's just been playing outside with my nieces. Like they stayed over like a week ago, and we just ran around in the snow, and it was an exhausting time, but it was very fun. So it's not a typical like outdoor sport or anything like that. I usually just like to go to the gym and lift. So I don't spend a lot of time outdoors, especially in the winter. But yeah, just running around outside with my nieces. Like, kids are a bundle of energy. They'll never stop. So it forces you to just keep going. It's very fun.
Nice. That's a really nice activity. Um, would you rather host a Twitter space or teach a in-person class?
Oh, I would say in person. I mean, they're both fine, but I like to educate people. I like to do things in person. I've tutored for a long time in person. It's just better, I think. So, if everyone had the ability to have teleportation, I think everything should be in person. But, we don't live in that world. So I understand the need for both. But yeah, definitely in-person class. It's just so much more valuable to have that kind of, just ability to move around a room and point to things. It just works so much better.
Agree. Okay, favorite physicist and why?
I'm not big on like ranking them, I would say, but maybe Enrico Fermi. There's this, so a lot of people have probably heard of the Fermi's paradox. With like, I think it's like with alien life. That's not even what I think of when I think of Fermi. I think of Fermi questions, and basically it's just a way to estimate the amount of something to within an order of magnitude. And the famous example is like how many piano tuners are there in the state of New York, and you can estimate like, okay, well, there's this many pianos, this many households. How often does a piano need to be tuned, etc. But this is such a useful skill that applies to everything. Like if you're good at Fermi questions, you just like have a good grasp of like how the world works. And I would highly recommend like thinking about things in these terms, like being able to roughly estimate numbers of things in general. It's just, I do it all the time. Like I don't think of it as like a Fermi question, but this was what Enrico Fermi kind of popularized, I guess. So for
Okay,
that reason and that reason alone, he is my favorite physicist.
nice. Um, and last question from the flash round, favorite conference or hackathon you've attended? I guess we kind of already went over this, but
Yeah. Okay. Conference in general, again, I would say Denver. Hackathon. It's actually it's a tough toss up. So the ETH Dam Hackathon was really cool. The what was it? The in Singapore, the ETH Global Hackathon. I really like that in a different way. It was just we had a very small crew there, and we were all just kind of working around the clock. And I really I liked that insanity of just someone's got to be there all the time. These hackers are just going for 48 hours straight, and things might not be going exactly working the right way. You got to do fixes on the fly, or there was just I kind of like the chaotic environment a little bit of how hackathons are. And Singapore in ETH Global, Singapore was kind of chaotic, so I enjoyed that. So that might be honestly my favorite.
okay, nice. Okay, this wraps up the flash round as well. And we do have one question for the community, which I think is a really fun question. In your opinion, what would be on the Mount Rushmore of crypto?
Oh, okay. So 4 people. So definitely Satoshi Nakamoto doesn't have a face, I guess, but you could do kind of an anonymous face or something like that. I'd say Vitalik Buterin, I think makes sense for Ethereum. Then I would say Sergey Nazarov from Chainlink. I think that was kind of the next evolution in terms of like, real interesting use cases and what you could do with blockchains and off-chain combining that. And then for 4, I would say Donsong. And of course, because, we're at Oasis, but I think privacy and adding that into the Ethereum kind of stack, I think that was so important. That is why I'm so passionate about this, right? So having, a decentralized ledger, smart contracts, off-chain data, decentralized, and then, privacy integrated into all of that. I think that basically covers all of your bases and lets you build whatever you want. And without, I guess Bitcoin was kind of the starting point, but without any of the other 3, you don't really have, all the tools that you need at your disposal. So that's kind of how I view things.
I
These are
think
really
that's a
kind of the
really
first
great
movers.
answer.
these are kind
Sorry.
of the first movers, but so I don't want to. Sometimes I don't like to name too many names and things,
Uh,
but that's kind of how I see things.
Nobody gets mad.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. No, but I think that's a really good Mount Rushmore of crypto. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, Robert, we're nearing to the end. Is there any question that I haven't asked that I should have asked? Or do you have any closing thoughts for us?
No, I don't have any closing thoughts. But yeah, I'm always happy to answer questions from the community. So, shoot me a
And
message.
I know you're active in the community, so well, Robert, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your journey with us. Uh, Everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment. Let us know what you found most interesting. As always, stay tuned for more insights, more behind-the-scenes moments, and more of the amazing people that make Oasis what it is. See you next time, everyone.
All right. Thank you.